The galaxy's perception of humanity was clear from the outset, dismissive and condescending. When Earth first made contact with the Galactic Council, the response was a mixture of amusement and disdain. Humanity, hailing from a dangerous death world, was viewed as a species of primitive, emotional creatures barely capable of functioning on the galactic stage. While other civilizations had centuries of interstellar diplomacy, humanity's relative inexperience made them easy targets for ridicule. The Galactic Council allowed humanity to join its ranks, not out of respect but as a symbolic gesture to appease smaller species clamoring for inclusivity. Humans were relegated to minor roles, given no say in key decisions, and assigned sectors deemed unimportant. Any attempt to assert themselves was met with patronizing dismissals, veiled insults, and open mockery. Humanity's ambassadors, though skilled and persistent, were constantly interrupted and belittled during council sessions. Behind closed doors, alien leaders mocked Earth's naive attempts to integrate into galactic society. Reports of humanity's struggles to adapt to interstellar trade and politics became fodder for jokes. Even Earth's technological achievements, remarkable by human standards, were dismissed as crude imitations of alien advancements. This perception was fueled further by humanity's cautious approach to military expansion, which many interpreted as weakness. The situation worsened when humans sought to establish colonies beyond their solar system. Alien corporations quickly exploited Earth's inexperience, securing unfair trade agreements and monopolizing valuable resources in human-controlled territories. Humanity's pleas for equitable treatment were ignored, with the Council claiming that Earth needed to earn its place in the galactic hierarchy. In truth, the Council saw no threat in humanity. They believed humans lacked the vision, unity, and capability to challenge their centuries-old dominance. Tensions began to rise as pirate factions, emboldened by humanity's perceived frailty, targeted Earth's colonies. These attacks were brutal, leaving thousands dead and entire settlements destroyed. Desperate for assistance, Earth's leaders turned to the Galactic Council for help. But their appeals were met with indifference. The Council argued that humanity had not contributed enough to merit military support, claiming their fleets were stretched too thin to assist such an insignificant species. This abandonment was a turning point. For the first time, humanity realized that they could not rely on the Council, or its member species for protection. Public outrage boiled over as news of the Council's indifference spread. Protests erupted across Earth and its colonies, with citizens demanding a stronger, more independent response. Political leaders, once divided by ideological differences, began to unite under a common goal: the defense and survival of humanity. The attacks on human colonies continued, but something had changed. Each assault was met with greater resistance as humanity adapted its strategies. Pirate factions that once faced little opposition now encountered human forces that fought with a desperation and ingenuity alien species were unprepared for. Though resources were limited, humanity began to organize, pooling its talents and knowledge to create makeshift defenses. Despite these efforts, the losses mounted. Entire colonies were abandoned, and millions of lives were uprooted. The Galactic Council, far from showing concern, used humanity's struggles as evidence of their inferiority. Speeches within the council chambers mocked Earth's inability to maintain order in its own territories. A prominent alien senator declared that humanity was a failed experiment in galactic integration, a sentiment echoed by many. Back on Earth, these insults only fueled the growing resolve. The narrative of humiliation and survival became a rallying cry, uniting people across the planet and its colonies. For the first time in history, humanity began to set aside its internal conflicts to focus on a singular objective: proving the galaxy wrong. The mockery that once demoralized Earth now became the spark for its transformation. As humanity regrouped, its leaders adopted a strategy of calculated silence. They ceased making appeals to the Galactic Council, withdrawing from discussions where their voices were ignored. This decision confused many alien observers, who interpreted it as humanity's acceptance of its place at the bottom of the galactic hierarchy. In reality, humanity was preparing for something far more consequential: a complete shift in its approach to survival. The Council, complacent in its belief that humanity posed no threat, continued to disregard the warning signs. Reports of technological development on Earth were dismissed as inconsequential. Rumors of military advancements were laughed off as the fantasies of a desperate species. Even when human ships began to demonstrate improved capabilities in isolated skirmishes, the Council refused to reconsider its stance. This arrogance would prove to be their greatest mistake. Humanity, once fragmented and overlooked, was quietly laying the groundwork for a future that no species could have foreseen. This shift from desperation to preparation marked the beginning of a new era for humanity. The attacks on their colonies and the Council's indifference had revealed a harsh truth: survival would depend entirely on their own efforts. This realization ignited a global transformation, one that transcended political, cultural, and national divisions. For the first time in recorded history, humanity operated with a singular purpose, driven by a shared determination to ensure their survival and secure their place in the galaxy. Earth's governments came together to form a unified coalition, pooling resources and expertise. Decisions were made with unprecedented efficiency, bypassing bureaucratic delays and prioritizing action. The focus was clear: build a defense capable of protecting humanity from any external threat. This coalition quickly established networks of underground research facilities, hidden from the prying eyes of the galaxy. In these secret hubs, humanity's brightest minds worked around the clock, developing technologies that would reshape the balance of power. The breakthroughs came quickly, fueled by the urgency of their situation. Advanced materials science enabled the creation of stronger, lighter spacecraft capable of withstanding extreme conditions. Energy systems were re-engineered, pushing the limits of efficiency to power next-generation weaponry. Artificial intelligence was integrated into military systems, enhancing decision-making and enabling precision tactics that no other species could match. Perhaps the most critical development was the mastery of stealth technology, allowing human ships to operate undetected in enemy territory. Parallel to these advancements, humanity revolutionized its military strategies. Earth's commanders rejected the rigid doctrines of traditional galactic warfare, which relied on overwhelming force and predictable formations. Instead, they embraced adaptability and unpredictability, traits deeply rooted in humanity's history of survival on a hostile planet. Training programs emphasized creative problem-solving, unconventional tactics, and the ability to exploit an enemy's weaknesses. Soldiers were trained not just as combatants but as independent thinkers capable of making split-second decisions in the heat of battle. The mobilization effort extended beyond the military. Civilians played a vital role, contributing their skills and resources to the cause. Engineers, scientists, and technicians worked tirelessly to design and construct the infrastructure needed to support the growing fleet. Factories were repurposed to produce weapons and ship components, while supply chains were optimized to ensure the efficient distribution of materials. The entire planet operated as a single, coordinated machine, driven by a collective determination to succeed. Intelligence gathering became another cornerstone of humanity's strategy. While the Council dismissed Earth's capacity for espionage, humanity quietly built one of the most sophisticated intelligence networks in the galaxy. Agents infiltrated alien factions, gathering critical data on their strengths, weaknesses, and internal politics. Cyber warfare units launched covert operations to disrupt enemy communications and extract sensitive information. This intelligence provided humanity with a comprehensive understanding of the galactic powers, enabling them to plan their next moves with precision. Despite the progress, the challenges were immense. Resources were limited, and every decision carried significant risks. Mistakes could not be afforded, as failure would mean the complete eradication of humanity's colonies and possibly Earth itself. Yet, rather than succumbing to fear, humanity thrived under the pressure. The memory of past humiliations served as a constant reminder of what was at stake. Every setback was met with renewed determination, every obstacle overcome through ingenuity and perseverance. As the preparations advanced, humanity maintained an outward appearance of compliance. Publicly, Earth's representatives continued to participate in the Galactic Council, offering no indication of the massive build-up occurring behind the scenes. This strategy of deception allowed humanity to buy precious time, as the Council and its member species remained oblivious to the scale of their efforts. The Council's arrogance blinded them to the possibility that humanity, once mocked and dismissed, could pose a genuine threat. Within a few years, humanity had transformed itself from a struggling species on the brink of collapse into a formidable force capable of challenging the galaxy's most powerful factions. Their fleets, once outmatched and ridiculed, were now equipped with cutting-edge technology that rivaled or surpassed anything the Council had to offer. Their soldiers, trained to think independently and act decisively, represented the pinnacle of human adaptability and resilience. Their leaders, unified by a shared vision, operated with a level of efficiency and cohesion that the galaxy had never seen before. The final piece of the puzzle was the development of a cohesive strategy for retaliation. Humanity's leaders knew that survival alone would not be enough. They needed to send a message that would resonate across the galaxy. The plan they devised was bold and unprecedented, built around the principles of precision and psychological impact. Rather than engaging in a prolonged war of attrition, humanity would strike at the heart of its enemies, dismantling their power structures and exposing their vulnerabilities. The groundwork for this strategy was laid through meticulous planning and exhaustive simulations. Every possible scenario was considered, every variable accounted for. The goal was not just to win battles but to reshape the galaxy's perception of humanity. They sought to demonstrate that Earth, far from being the weak and naive species it was thought to be, was a force to be reckoned with, a species capable of turning the tide of galactic history. As the preparations neared completion, humanity stood on the brink of a new chapter. The mockery and dismissal they had endured for so long were about to be replaced by a profound and lasting respect. The galaxy, which had once laughed at the thought of humanity as an equal, would soon learn the consequences of underestimating a species born on a death world. The time for silence was over. Humanity was ready to make its presence known. The moment arrived when humanity transitioned from preparation to action, executing their plans with precision and resolve. The galaxy, still entrenched in its perception of humanity as weak and insignificant, was utterly unprepared for what came next. Human forces, equipped with years of covert development and honed through relentless training, unleashed a series of calculated strikes that upended the established order. The first operation targeted the pirate factions responsible for earlier colony raids. These factions had operated with impunity for decades, their ships raiding defenseless settlements with no fear of retaliation. Humanity's response was swift and brutal. Using their advanced stealth technology, human warships infiltrated the pirate strongholds undetected. Within hours, the pirate fleets were annihilated, their leaders captured or eliminated. The galaxy barely had time to process the news before the second phase of humanity's campaign began. What followed was a systematic dismantling of threats to humanity's survival. Criminal syndicates that had exploited Earth's resources were wiped out, their supply lines severed and their influence obliterated. Rival factions that had once mocked humanity's capabilities now found themselves on the receiving end of devastating assaults. Each strike was executed with ruthless efficiency, sending shockwaves across the galactic community. The key to humanity's success lay in their ability to adapt and innovate. Unlike the stagnant doctrines of the Galactic Council's military, humanity's strategies evolved with each encounter. They exploited weaknesses that their enemies didn't even realize they had, using a combination of intelligence, speed, and overwhelming firepower. Alien commanders, accustomed to predictable battles of attrition, found themselves outmaneuvered at every turn. By the time they attempted to respond, it was already too late. Humanity's advances were not limited to direct military confrontations. They targeted infrastructure critical to their adversaries' power, crippling communication networks, energy grids, and logistical hubs. These attacks were surgical, designed to minimize collateral damage while maximizing disruption. Entire fleets were left stranded, unable to coordinate or resupply. It became clear that humanity's understanding of warfare extended far beyond brute force. They were fighting a war of systems, dismantling their enemy's ability to function. As the campaign progressed, humanity shifted its focus to the Galactic Council itself. The Council's arrogance had blinded them to the growing threat, dismissing reports of human victories as exaggerated or isolated incidents. This complacency proved fatal. Humanity's forces launched a bold offensive against one of the Council's primary fleets, destroying it in a matter of hours. The battle sent a clear message: humanity was no longer willing to be a passive participant in the galactic order. The psychological impact of these victories was profound. For centuries, the Council had maintained its dominance through the perception of invincibility. Now, that perception was shattered. News of humanity's success spread rapidly, and with it came a growing sense of unease among the Council's member species. The same species that had once laughed at humanity now found themselves questioning their own security. Humanity's actions also began to inspire those who had suffered under the Council's rule. Oppressed species saw in humanity a symbol of defiance, proof that the Council was not infallible. Quietly, these species began to offer their support, providing intelligence and resources that further bolstered humanity's position. Some even launched uprisings of their own, emboldened by humanity's example. Despite their successes, humanity's leaders remained cautious. They understood that their victories, while significant, were only the beginning. The Council still wielded considerable power, and retaliation was inevitable. To prepare for this, humanity continued to refine its strategies, incorporating lessons learned from each engagement. Their focus remained on maintaining the element of surprise and staying one step ahead of their enemies. The Council, now fully aware of the threat humanity posed, scrambled to respond. They mobilized their remaining fleets, consolidating their forces in an attempt to overwhelm humanity through sheer numbers. But this strategy played directly into humanity's hands. Using their intelligence networks, human forces anticipated the Council's movements, setting traps that turned their numerical advantage into a liability. Ambushes and precision strikes decimated the Council's fleets, leaving them unable to regroup. As the campaign reached its peak, humanity's forces launched their most audacious operation yet, an assault on one of the Council's core systems. This system, heavily fortified and considered untouchable, represented the heart of the Council's power. The attack was meticulously planned, combining stealth, diversionary tactics, and overwhelming firepower. By the time the Council realized what was happening, it was too late to mount an effective defense. The fall of the core system marked a turning point in the conflict. With their leadership in disarray and their military crippled, the Council's authority began to crumble. Member species, sensing the shift in power, started to distance themselves from the Council, seeking alliances with humanity instead. The balance of power in the galaxy had been irrevocably altered. Humanity's invasion was more than a series of military victories, it was a statement of intent. They had risen from the ashes of humiliation and exploitation to become a force capable of reshaping the galaxy. The Council, once the pinnacle of power, now faced the reality of their hubris. The galaxy, which had laughed at humanity, was now forced to reckon with their strength and resilience. The narrative had shifted, and humanity was no longer the object of ridicule, it was the harbinger of change. The aftermath of humanity's campaign sent shockwaves through the galaxy. What had once been a rigid hierarchy dominated by the Galactic Council was now a fractured political landscape, teetering on the edge of collapse. Humanity stood at the center of this transformation, no longer a marginal species but a force that had reshaped the status quo. The galaxy, once defined by arrogance and stagnation, faced a future shaped by the consequences of underestimating humanity. With the Galactic Council's fleets shattered and their infrastructure in disarray, their member species began to rethink their alliances. The Council's authority, built on centuries of unchecked dominance, had been exposed as hollow. Former allies, once unwavering in their support, distanced themselves in fear of further retaliation. Smaller species, long ignored or exploited, saw an opportunity to break free from the oppressive system. Uprisings erupted across the galaxy, dismantling what remained of the Council's influence. Humanity, however, did not seek to claim the vacuum left behind. While many expected Earth to impose its will on the galaxy, humanity's leaders made it clear that they had no interest in replicating the Council's methods. Their objective had never been conquest or domination, it was survival and the dismantling of an unjust system. This approach won humanity widespread respect and trust, even among those who had once scorned them. Earth's leadership focused on rebuilding rather than occupying. The planets devastated by the Council's policies, including their own colonies, became the center of extensive humanitarian efforts. Engineers, scientists, and medical teams worked tirelessly to restore infrastructure and provide aid to those affected by the conflict. Resources captured during the campaign were not hoarded but distributed to those in need, further solidifying humanity's reputation as a fair and just power. These efforts extended beyond material support. Humanity spearheaded the creation of a new coalition, one designed to replace the corrupt Galactic Council with a system based on equality and mutual respect. The coalition emphasized decentralization, ensuring that no single species could dominate the others. Humanity played a key role in its formation, but they refused to take sole control, instead acting as facilitators and mediators. The coalition's establishment was not without challenges. Many species, still reeling from the collapse of the Council, struggled to trust each other. Old rivalries and grievances resurfaced, threatening to derail the process. Humanity's leaders worked tirelessly to bridge these divides, using their hard-earned credibility to bring opposing sides together. The process was slow and arduous, but it laid the foundation for a new era of cooperation. Despite the success of their diplomatic efforts, humanity remained vigilant. They understood that peace was fragile and that the remnants of the Council still posed a potential threat. These remnants, though weakened, continued to operate in the shadows, launching sporadic attacks and spreading propaganda to undermine the coalition's efforts. Humanity responded with precision, neutralizing these threats while avoiding unnecessary escalation. Internally, Earth faced its own set of challenges. The rapid rise to galactic prominence had placed immense strain on its societies and economies. The scars of the conflict, both physical and emotional, were deeply felt. Millions mourned the lives lost during the war, and the reconstruction of their colonies demanded substantial resources. Public debates emerged about the balance between supporting the coalition and addressing humanity's domestic needs. These challenges, however, were met with the same resolve that had carried humanity through the conflict. Leaders emphasized the importance of unity and resilience, ensuring that no community was left behind in the rebuilding process. Investments in education, technology, and infrastructure became central to their recovery efforts, creating opportunities for growth and innovation. Culturally, humanity experienced a renaissance. The events of the conflict inspired a wave of creativity, as artists, writers, and thinkers sought to make sense of their shared experience. These works celebrated not just humanity's victories but also the values that had driven their success: determination, ingenuity, and the belief in a better future. This cultural output resonated across the galaxy, further strengthening humanity's influence. As the years passed, the galaxy began to stabilize. The coalition grew stronger, its member species finding common ground through shared governance and open dialogue. Trade flourished, scientific collaborations expanded, and cultures once suppressed under the Council's rule began to thrive. Humanity's role in this transformation became a defining feature of its legacy. They were seen not as conquerors but as catalysts for change, a species that had turned adversity into an opportunity for progress. Yet, humanity's leaders never allowed themselves to become complacent. They knew that history was cyclical and that the lessons of the past could easily be forgotten. To prevent this, they established institutions dedicated to preserving the memory of the conflict and its consequences. These institutions served as a reminder of what could happen when arrogance and oppression were left unchecked and ensured that future generations would not repeat the mistakes of their predecessors. Humanity's journey from a ridiculed newcomer to a respected leader was a testament to their resilience and adaptability. They had faced the galaxy's scorn, endured its hostility, and emerged stronger for it. In the process, they had not only secured their own survival but also reshaped the galaxy into a more just and equitable place. The message they sent was clear: humanity sought peace, but they would never again allow themselves to be underestimated. Humanity's rise to power left an indelible mark on the galaxy, but it also brought with it significant challenges. After the collapse of the Galactic Council, the galaxy's power structure was in flux. Despite the destruction of the Council's fleet and the dismantling of their military dominance, no one was certain about what would come next. As the dominant force behind the collapse, humanity now found itself in a position where it was expected to lead the galaxy. However, unlike the previous empire, humanity had a different vision for the future. This vision was one of cooperation, not domination, and fairness, not tyranny. The aftermath of the invasion brought new questions to the forefront. While Earth and its allies celebrated their victories, they were acutely aware of the responsibility that came with their new position. The destruction caused by the conflict left billions without homes or livelihoods. The scars from years of war were not easily erased, and humanity's leaders were determined to avoid repeating the same mistakes that had led to the Council's fall. Humanity's first priority was healing the galaxy, not just with weapons, but through compassion and practical assistance. Rather than imposing their will on the galaxy, humanity's leadership focused on rebuilding efforts. Earth's resources were mobilized, not to conquer, but to restore the lives and livelihoods of those who had been devastated by years of oppression and war. Earth provided medical aid, technology, and agricultural expertise to the species that had suffered under the Council's reign. Human engineers worked tirelessly to rebuild infrastructure, ensuring that no species was left behind. The humanitarian effort was extensive. Yet, it was not only physical aid that was needed but a new understanding of what intergalactic cooperation could look like. Humanity's leadership realized that if the galaxy was to have any hope of moving forward, there had to be new systems in place, systems that didn't rely on oppression or fear. They worked tirelessly with former enemies and allies alike to establish a new political framework. The idea of a galactic federation, one that was free of the corruption that had characterized the Galactic Council, began to take shape. It wasn't just Earth's responsibility to lead, but the responsibility of every species that had been affected by the Council's actions. The newly formed Galactic Coalition was based on equality and shared governance, where each species had a voice. A central council was formed, not to dictate, but to ensure fair representation and equal treatment for all. Humanity's role was not as a leader, but as a mediator, ensuring that no species would dominate the others. Despite the successes in rebuilding and the formation of the coalition, there were those who resisted. The remnants of the old Galactic Council did not accept humanity's rise and continued to operate in the shadows, plotting to regain control. These factions began to rally, finding support among those who had benefited from the Council's regime. They attempted to destabilize the fragile peace by spreading misinformation and launching covert operations. Humanity responded swiftly. While the focus was on rebuilding and cooperation, Earth's military remained a strong deterrent. They had learned from the mistakes of the past. Humanity understood that peace could not be achieved through weakness. Their military forces were strong, yet their use of force was calculated. Whenever a faction attempted to upset the balance of power, humanity responded not with excessive force, but with swift, decisive action. Diplomacy and unity were key, but humanity's military strength remained an undeniable presence in the galaxy. Internally, Earth also faced the daunting task of managing its newfound role. With Earth at the forefront of rebuilding, the planet's economy had been stretched thin. The demands of the galaxy's rebuilding efforts were immense, and Earth's leaders knew they had to balance their internal recovery with their obligations to the galaxy. Public opinion was divided. While the people of Earth were proud of their contributions, many felt the burden of their newfound status. The pressure of leadership was heavy, and there were concerns about the cost of keeping the peace. Humanity's leaders worked tirelessly to ensure that their citizens were not forgotten in the wake of the war. Simultaneously, Earth's culture began to evolve. The wars, the conflict, and the rebuilding sparked a new sense of identity. People were proud of their achievements, but there was a collective understanding that there was more to be done. Humanity's reputation across the galaxy shifted from that of an arrogant, naive species to one of resilience and fairness. Those who had once mocked humanity now looked to Earth as a model of what could be accomplished through unity, resourcefulness, and a commitment to justice. But despite all the progress, there were lingering doubts. Some species questioned whether humanity's newfound leadership was truly based on the values they had promoted, or whether it was simply a new form of dominance, disguised under the banner of equality. The challenge for humanity now was to ensure that the lessons of the past were not forgotten. The peace they had fought for would only last if they remained vigilant and committed to the principles of fairness and cooperation. Humanity's role in the galaxy was still being defined. While they had helped rebuild the galaxy, they knew that their work was far from finished. There was always the possibility that old power structures would resurface, or that new threats would arise. But one thing was clear: humanity had earned its place in the galaxy, not through conquest, but through perseverance, unity, and a shared belief in the importance of peace. The galaxy, once laughing at humanity's weakness, now faced a future in which they would be forced to reckon with humanity's strength, determination, and capacity for both growth and compassion.